Hey, everybody. Welcome to Conservation Conversations. My name is Ana Sangronis, and I work for the University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in Miami-Dade County. This webinar series is a joint effort between UF IFAS Extension, Florida Sea Grant, and Miami-Dade County Eco Adventures. We host this webinar series every second Wednesday at 6 p.m. Everyone in this webinar is currently muted and videos are off. We ask that you type any questions you may have into the chat box, which I will be moderating alongside my colleague, Ed Pritchard. We will be taking questions at the end of the session. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent out within the next week. Please follow us on social media where we advertise these webinars as well as showcase related content. If you'd like to receive an email reminder with the monthly conversation topic and registration link, please email me or let us know in the chat box. Now I will turn it over to our guest presenter today, Addy Nagle of Miami Waterkeeper.
Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to be presenting Miami Waterkeeper's Thousand Eyes on the Water program. If you haven't heard about Miami Waterkeeper before, we are a nonprofit focused on protecting waterways in and around Miami. We have a three-tiered approach where we collect scientific data, use that data to inform policy, and then communicate this information to the community through education and outreach. Before we jump in, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Addy Nagle, and I am the Science Engagement Coordinator at Miami Waterkeeper. I am from Philadelphia and moved down to Miami about 2 years ago to pursue my master's in marine biology and ecology. I am currently finishing up that research, but my area of study focuses on coral physiology and carbon capture. I love to scuba dive, and I'm extremely passionate about what we do at Miami Waterkeeper, and I'm really excited to share that with you today. So thanks again for joining us today to learn about what you can do to keep our water clean. Today, I'll show you how to spot pollution when you see it and what to do. Biscayne Bay is a shallow subtropical estuary near the city of Miami and downstream from the Florida Everglades. It encompasses a national park and an aquatic preserve, and really is the jewel of our city. Biscayne Bay produces billions of dollars for our local economy every year. But like many waterways around Florida and around the country, the bay's water quality is declining quickly from pollution. In the summer of 2020, a lot of you may remember our bay experienced a severe fish kill. In just 5 days, more than 27,000 fish and wildlife died. This was really a tipping point for our bay. And pollution events are occurring all around us all the time. These issues can cover large areas or be small, but even small pollution events add up over time. And all of these pollution events, no matter if they're in the water or on land, eventually impact the bay. That's why I'm here today to share with you how you can protect Florida's waterways from pollution. The Miami Waterkeeper team is a small staff working to protect well over 470 miles of waterways in Miami-Dade and Broward. And this includes coastlines, canals, rivers, and other water bodies. We need your help to make sure the water pollution doesn't go unnoticed. And just a reminder, you don't have to be on a boat to spot pollution in our waterways. Simply monitoring your nearest storm drain at the end of your street can help us protect the bay. And you also don't need any special scientific equipment. Your phone is the perfect tool to help you report this pollution and get it to the right entities. And just to emphasize, what we're talking about here might be specific to South Florida in some ways, but these principles can be applied anywhere. So you can take what you learned today and really bring it with you no matter where you are. All right, so let's dive into the Thousand Eyes on the Water training program. I am going to share common pollution types you might see and then how to report them. So starting out, the first type of pollution we are going to go over is sediment pollution. Sediment pollution often makes the water look this light color, and it causes big plumes that can travel over long distances. Eventually, the sediment can settle out of the water column and fall onto the seafloor, burying seagrass, corals, and also possibly clogging fish's gills. Sedimentation can also cause serious harm to water quality and habitat. During dredging and construction, sediment curtains, so this yellow curtain here, are required to contain the sediment. However, as you can see in this picture, sometimes these sediment curtains get compromised and do not do their job. So the sediment can actually leave the construction site and wreak havoc over multiple ecosystems. So here's another example of this sediment pollution. It can come from construction sites that aren't properly maintaining their sediment. Like in this image, you can see the sediment curtain is right here. It's a pretty small area, and the sediment plume has traveled all the way down that street. And here is another example. These events are very common in Miami, and it's a very easy type of pollution to spot. Due to the frequency of these events, the city of Miami actually has a law that they can shut down construction sites immediately if they have a compromised sediment curtain. So here is another sediment curtain that is compromised. So if you see a compromised sediment curtain, report it to us, and we can actually hold that construction site or that dredging site accountable. Dredging, like I said, can cause severe and widespread sedimentation. And between 2013 and 2015, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers led a project to dredge the Port of Miami. This project, due to improper sediment curtain usage, ended up killing over 500,000 corals by burying them in a huge sediment cloud. Miami Waterkeeper filed an Endangered Species Act lawsuit, and we actually went and recorded data, and here's the Miami Waterkeeper, Rachel, diving and and showing what some of that sedimentation looks like. So this is a brain coral that had been smothered by sedimentation, and you can see momentarily what that sedimentation does to the coral tissue. So that dark colored tissue is healthy, and that light colored tissue is dead tissue. Their corals are extremely sensitive to sedimentation, so when mass amounts of sediment accumulate, it results in rapid and immediate death. Here is an aerial photo of that plume during that dredging. This was taken in April 2015. And just for scale of the sheer size of that plume, you can compare it. So this is a map, an aerial map, and the island directly adjacent to that large plume is Virginia Key. So the plume was larger than Virginia Key, and it landed right on top of the Florida Reef Track, smothering, like I said, over 500,000 corals. So moving on to another type of pollution events, this photo shows an oil slick, which these are also pretty easy to recognize. You can spot an oil slick by looking for a rainbow sheen floating on top of the water. This type of pollution is particularly harmful to wildlife and to humans who might be swimming. Unfortunately, it's also very common here in Miami. One caveat with oil slicks is that they're very difficult to trace the origin of because oil spreads extremely fast. Here's another example of what an oil sheen or oil slick may look like. They're especially common in marinas, near storm drain outfall pipes, near a gas station, etc. We report all of these oil sightings to the National Response Center. So if you see a rainbow sheen, report it, and we can get that entity involved immediately. Another type of pollution is sewage. So sewage leaks are another prominent source of pollution in our waterways. They can cause major issues and be hard to spot. So they can look like many different things. So in this video, you can see a differential in water density underwater. This illustrates a sewage leak coming from an ocean outfall pipe that was reported by a community member. And when we found out about it, we sent divers to verify the leak, film this video, and file a notice and intent to sue. And within 3 days, this leak was fixed. Here's another example of a sewage leak. This is actually a sludge line that the water and sewer department had turned on between treatment plants, and it ran under the bay, and there was clearly a huge leak, and they didn't know about it until we actually reported it to them, thanks to a community report. We were able to alert the community of a no contact water advisory for days. And here's another sewage leak into our waterways. This was spotted by a kayaker who sent in this video. It was a multi-million gallon oil spill under the Oleta Bridge in northern Biscayne Bay. It was spewing raw sewage for days before anybody could spot it and report it. So if it wasn't for this community report, we really don't know how long this leak could have lasted. Moving on to another type of pollution. It's a lot of doom and gloom, but this is illegal dumping. So here's an example of a city truck that actually was opening and discharging water down a drain. The reporter who sent us this photo described the liquid as black and smelly. And the city responded to the report immediately, addressed the issue with the employee for not properly cleaning their drainage structure and dumping it down the drain. And more types of this pollution include leaking dumpsters, contaminated runoff from industrial sites, etc. It's really when these chemicals and pollutants get onto hard surface roads, parking lots, urban areas. Once there's a large enough rainfall, they get washed directly into our stormwater pipes and into the bay. So this might not look like it's directly affecting our waterways, but once it rains, and in Miami it does rain a lot, these chemicals will get into our waterways. Miami Waterkeeper has also worked to reduce pollution in our waterways by working on municipal bans of the harmful herbicide glyphosate, which is the primary chemical in Roundup. Some canal spraying of herbicides is legal, but this community report alerted us to the fact that a municipality was still using glyphosate, which they agreed to stop using years before. This community report led to the municipality stopping the use of glyphosate, and then our advocacy led to 80% of Miami-Dade's 200 miles of canals stopping herbicide spraying altogether. We did this because herbicide spraying doesn't really combat the root issue of algal growth. Instead, it just adds more chemicals into our waterways and can make the situation worse. So we wanted to fight to spot the root cause of these algal blooms instead of just treating the symptom. And here's just an example of a leaking dumpster getting chemicals into our waterways. So dumpsters are not supposed to be leaking. These chemicals that collect at the bottom of the dumpsters can be very harmful. So if you see a leaking dumpster, and especially if there's a waterway or storm drain nearby, definitely report it. This one surprised me when I found out about it, that car washes and marinas are required to have containment for soap and detergent so that they don't go into our waterways or down storm drains. So if you see a car wash or a marina using soap and letting it go down a drain, report it. So here's just an example of that. Moving on to another type of pollution. This is one that is very common basically everywhere on the globe, and that's marine debris. Marine debris can entangle marine mammals, cause human health concerns, clog storm drains, and lead to flooding. A lot of the marine debris in our waterways comes from land-based sources, but it also can wash up from other locations. Here, this photo is a community report that was taken in the Little River Canal on July 25th, 2021. And you can just see the sheer amount of plastic and just trash that was caught in the canal. And after 2 days, we had that river cleaned up. Miami Waterkeeper also hosts regular beach cleanups because we want to work towards reducing the source of the problem, which is the overuse of single-use plastic and styrofoam. We've worked with multiple municipalities on single-use plastic and styrofoam bans. But everyone knows that this is a huge problem, not just in Miami. So we say that if you see a couple pieces of marine debris, we encourage you, if you can do it in a safe manner, to pick it up. If you see large amounts, like in this photo, definitely report it to us, because this is, a project that would be way too large for just one person to take on and might, endanger some component. But if you also see, this is a report that we had sent to us. I don't even know what was going on here, but we had a report sent to us of a couch floating on 3 paddle boards that was sitting stuck between a bridge in a canal. It was sitting there for weeks. Nobody had removed it, so it got reported to us, and we actually were able to contact somebody to come and remove it. So if you see weird or large marine debris, definitely send it to us. Especially sunken vessels, derelict vessels, furniture, mattresses, all of those things, we can work to get those removed. Moving on to another type of pollution, or this is actually kind of like a trick question. So this photo is showing an algal bloom, which isn't a type of pollution, but it can indicate polluted or unbalanced waterways. Most blooms happen when there's too much nutrient pollution, nitrogen and phosphorus specifically. To identify an algal bloom, look for changes in the water color. So if the water normally is clear and it starts to be more green or brown, that might be indicative of an algal bloom. And it's really important to let agencies know when a waterway is out of balance, like in this photo, because algal blooms can eventually lead to fish kills. And we do think that was one of the causes of the large fish kill in 2020. So here is some pretty devastating footage from that 2020 fish kill. Fish kills, we don't know the main cause of the fish kill in 2020, but we do know that fish kills are caused by a combination of high temperatures, high levels of pollution, and ultimately low levels of oxygen. So these fish are actually suffocating in the water. A sign of a serious fish kill is a large number of dead fish found together. So sometimes you will find one fish washed up on shore. That doesn't necessarily indicate a fish kill, but if you see a group of multiple fish, definitely report it to us. This was a community report that had gotten sent to us, and they believed it was a fish kill. And from this photo, without any context, it does look like a fish kill. However, upon further investigation, we realized that this was a fisherman's leftover bait fish that they had dumped before heading home. So this actually wasn't a fish kill. However, if you don't have a background in fish ID, or if you just aren't sure, definitely go ahead and report it to us, and we can be the ones to help make the final decision. All right, now on to more of a positive note. Not all reports have to be pollution. Some reports that you send to us can be of cool marine creatures. So for example, we got this video of 2 small-toothed sawfish. These animals are extremely endangered, and all sightings we ask get reported, and you can either come to us or you can go to FWC. Here are some other animals that you should report if you spot them. They're super rare, so scientists track every sighting, and if you're lucky enough to see one of these animals, so small-toothed sawfish, horseshoe crabs, right whales, or the American crocodile, make sure you write down the date and the time of the sighting, the exact location of the animal. We prefer coordinates, the approximate size, identifying marks, and lots of photos and videos. For certain animals, you should report them if you see them injured, entangled, or dead. These animals include turtles, manatees, whales, and dolphins. These animals aren't so rare that every sighting is tracked, but they are protected, so a team will respond if they're found injured or dead. So here's one of the only times in this training where I ask that you call these agencies directly instead of contacting us. Time is of the essence to save these animals, so make sure you don't touch or attempt to help them yourself. Call FWC and follow their instructions. And then if you want, after you do that, you can still send us a report just to let us know. If you see any other kinds of injured native wildlife, so not protected animals, but native animals like pelicans, various types of birds, raccoons, owls, etc., you can call Pelican Harbor Seabird Station. They will respond and rehabilitate the native animals. And if you are somewhere else, not in Miami, you can always look up a local wildlife rescue organization. So I always recommend that if you want to take a screenshot or a photo of these numbers, to have them on hand. That's always a great idea. Now that you know how to observe and identify pollution, congratulations, you're one of our eyes on the water. Here's a little video of what our pollution report form looks like. And I want to emphasize that before making a report, make sure you're safe and don't confront anybody or trespass. You don't need to go out of your way. Do not put yourself in danger. Just make sure you're sending us, try to just take a photo, and then you can send us the report when you are safe and out of the way. There are two ways to make a report. The best way is to go to miamiwaterkeeper.org, and then on our homepage of our website, you can click report pollution. And then, like this video, it'll walk you through the information that you need to send. You can also send us an email at pollution@miamiwaterkeeper.org. I ask that you try to include as much information and as much detail as you can in the report, and take lots of good photos, not just super close-up photos. Maybe try and get, the background, where you are, so we can make sure we're responding in the right location. And then besides reporting and identifying pollution, I also just want to highlight some other ways that we can protect our water in our day-to-day life. Septic tanks, which are a form of on-site sewage treatment, can be a huge pollution source if they are compromised. They can lead to massive contamination of groundwater and surface water. So, if you don't already know, find out if you have a septic tank, and if you do, make sure you are getting it inspected at least every 3 years. Additionally, fertilizer runoff can lead to algal blooms, seagrass die-off, and fish kill. So we worked for years to get one of the state's strongest fertilizer ordinances passed in Miami-Dade County, and we ask that you follow these do's and don'ts to prevent fertilizer pollution in our waterways. So we ask that you skip fertilizer from May 15th to October 31st, because this is the rainy season in Miami. And not only will this save you money, because your fertilizer isn't being absorbed by the plants anyway, it will also save our waterways from getting excess nutrients. We also ask that you use only fertilizer with 0% phosphorus, because our soil in Miami-Dade does not need phosphorus, so that just minimizes excess nutrient runoff, from the source. And then we ask that you use at least 65% slow release nitrogen and never apply fertilizer within 20 feet of a waterway or storm drain. Additionally, if you have a pet, make sure you pick up their waste. Pet waste can contribute nutrients and bacteria to waterways, and picking it up is just the right thing to do. So definitely make sure you pick up your pet waste. We actually had a junior ambassador, so the junior ambassador program is our high school environmental advocacy program. And this junior ambassador started a campaign to help his neighbors dispose of pet waste properly. His campaign is called Yes Poo, No Poo, and you can actually look it up online and find out more about how to get your neighborhoods involved. Additionally, when you're boating, be sure to follow all the speed limits and be a safe boater. Manatees are slow-moving creatures, they're super cute, but they're super slow, and they need time to get out of the way from fast-moving vessels. So that's why those speed limits are actually in place, partially. So follow the speed limit, prevent pollution coming out of your boat, pack in, pack out when you're visiting spoil islands. We have a little QR code here to scan, and it will give you more information about boating speed limits. So if you're a boater, feel free to scan that now. And then if you're a fisherman, make sure you're following all catch limits and season dates, and take your gear with you. Fishing gear that's left behind is called ghost traps. And here's a photo of one, and they will continue to trap and kill marine life, even if they aren't being utilized anymore. I actually responded to a sea turtle who had been entangled in a similar looking lobster trap. And these traps, this photo is a perfect example. It's sitting on a healthy seagrass bed, which turtles love to eat. So animals will frequently get entangled in them and drag them around. And it's just a super sad sight. So if you're a fisherman, if you're putting out lobster or crab traps, make sure you remove them. We also have a science team that's out every week sampling our waterways to make sure the public knows if our water is clean or unsafe for swimming. So be sure to check out the latest results of these weekly water quality tests on our website, social media, and on the Swim Guide app. So if you are a frequent beach goer, I highly recommend that you download the Swim Guide app. This app stays up to date with weekly or sometimes bi-weekly information of almost all the recreational beaches. It tests for fecal indicator bacteria. So in addition to Miami Waterkeeper, we have the Department of Health, Surfrider, and other organizations that are out there testing water quality. If the beach has a green light, that means it meets the water quality standards. If it has a red light, it means that the levels of this bacteria have far surpassed those water quality standards and the water is not safe. This is a great thing to check out just before you go to the beach. All right, so now we're going to do a knowledge check, kind of like a pop quiz, where I am going to show you a photo and you are going to put in the chat what type of pollution it is and if you would report it. Or I guess we can switch that around. If you would report it, and if you are going to report it, what type of pollution it is. So starting out with our first question, what's wrong with this picture and is this something you would report? You can go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll give you like 5 seconds. All right, I see some people put their answers in the chat. So yes, you would want to report this. This is a sedimentation plume and an improper sediment barrier. So you can see here is that sediment curtain, that yellow barrier, and the sediment has traveled far, far away from that barrier. So you would definitely want to report this. Okay, here is our next question. What's wrong with this picture? And is this something you would report? Go ahead and put it in the chat, what you think. Okay, so this is kind of a trick question. So just from looking at this photo, I would say no, this doesn't need to be reported. It looks like it's just sea foam. However, if you were actually at the site of this event, this potential pollution event, We would ask that you take note of a couple things. So this might just be sea foam. However, is there a weird smell coming from the foam? Does it look like it's a weird color, potentially like not just this off-white white seafoam color, maybe it has like a tinge of a weird like a brown or a green, and you've never seen it in this area before, and you somewhere that you walk by daily or something like that, then you would want to report it to us and include that information. If you just sent us this photo and said, this is just some bubbles on the surface, we would probably just think it's seafoam. But if there is something that's a little peculiar about the event, go ahead and report it. We always say better safe than sorry. Okay, what is wrong with this picture, and is this something you would report? And you can go ahead and put your response in the chat. Okay. We love the trick questions. This is actually, it's not a trick question, but there's two right answers. So there are two types of pollution in this photo. We have the first being a derelict or abandoned vessel. So that's something that if you see a boat that is half sunk or seems to be abandoned, you can report it to us and we can triage that to the right agency. The second pollution is this ring around the vessel that looks like an oil slick. So a lot of these times, these abandoned vessels still have fuel on board. And after, rotting and decomposing, that gas tank can become compromised and leak to the surrounding water. So this is both a derelict vessel and an oil spill. So yes, definitely report. Okay, what is wrong with this picture, and is this something you would report? You can go ahead and put it in the chat. All right, so I'm laughing because it's a little bit of another trick question. This is really hard to tell, but we get photos like this all the time, and we kind of have to do some investigative work to figure out what this is. So you might look at this and think maybe it's an algal bloom, or maybe it's some toxic chemical getting into the waterways. And if you saw this and you didn't know what it was, definitely go ahead and report it, because you don't need to do the investigative work. That's what we're here for. So go ahead and send a photo. But what this event actually ended up being was that the sewer department was conducting a test to try and find a leak in the system. So they put this dye that is not harmful to, our waterways into the pipes, and if it leaked into the waterways, then they could tell that it was compromised. So this wasn't anything negative. However, even just spotting this, maybe the sewer department hadn't seen it, so we can go ahead and pass this information on to them and say that yes, it is leaking. But judging from this photo, I think they probably knew. All right. Now that you know I have a lot of trick questions, maybe you can give your answer a little spin. So would you report this if you saw it? What's wrong with it? Is this a type of pollution? You can go ahead and put it in the chat. You can put some like critical thinking that you might go through if you just saw this on like a walk. All right, so this is similar to that seafoam photo. Judging from this photo, we don't know really the source of this water. So we would ask, does the water have a smell? Is it discolored? Can you tell where it's coming from? This could be running off. If you followed it where it was coming from, maybe someone's illegally dumping. We really can't tell from this photo. If you can't tell as you're reporting it, you can even include that in your description of the event, but go ahead and send it to us anyway. We always want to just be aware of these things happening to our bay, and we can go ahead and take a look if we got a report like this. Okay, what is wrong with this picture or this video, and is this something that you would report? All right, everyone put their answer in the chat. I'm seeing some of them. Yeah, like depends on the source of the liquid. That's a good thought. So this was a broken sewer line. It had busted in the bay. So this is raw sewage. Another event like similar to the ones I was showing earlier. So this was definitely something you would want to report. If you were there, you might even, be able to smell or see what is coming out of this pipe, what's in the water, and make a better assessment. But odds are, if say you're in an area that you frequent and there usually isn't this bubbling water coming from the ocean floor, you would want to report it. Okay, I just have a couple more. So what is wrong with this picture? Or is there something wrong with this picture? And would you report it? You can go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, I'm seeing a couple. Yep. All right. Looks like everybody is on board with this one. Yes. So this is sargassum. The infamous sargassum. It comes in the summer and there's really not a lot you can do about it. It isn't pollution. It isn't caused by runoff. It comes from the open ocean and drifts inland, and it may start to smell, it may look out of place, but this isn't something you would report. Sometimes animals do get entangled in sargassum. Little sea turtles might get entangled in the sargassum. So if you see something like that, go ahead and follow, if it's a sea turtle, contact FWC. If it's an injured bird, contact Pelican Harbor. If you see a lot of dead fish in a pile of sargassum, you can contact us. That may be indicative of a fish kill. But if you're just looking out and just don't like the look of it, or you're like, this smells bad, it's not a pollution event and it's not something that you would report. All right, next one. So what about this? Would we report this? Go ahead and put it in the chat what you think. Okay, I'll give it a couple more seconds. So this is a construction site. Yes, so I see a couple people saying that it doesn't seem to be near water, so you wouldn't need to report it. But I want to really drive home the fact that anything, especially in Florida, that happens on land will make its way into our waterways, whether that's through rainfall, wind, another natural event. This dirt escaping this construction site is a violation of sedimentation leaving a construction site. So it's a little different than if this was happening in our waterways, but this is something you would want to report because this construction site is breaking the rule that says sediment should not be leaving your site. So yes, report it. And the final one, would you report this? This is a photo of a man washing his car directly on the bay. So yeah, this one doesn't really need an explanation if you ever saw this or if you see something similar. We don't want this soap getting into our bay. Yeah, so definitely report it and don't be this guy and don't wash your car near our waterways. Here's an example of a way to do this, if you want to wash your own vehicles and not go to a car wash, we advise people to use a tarp to kind of capture this soapy water, and then you let the tarp air dry, the soap still stays on the tarp and the water evaporates. So that's one way around it. Oh, okay, we have two more, sorry. So would we report this? So this is some snorkelers who are touching a baby manatee. Yes, so I see one person. Oh, yeah, a couple people. Yes, so manatees are protected. They are an endangered species. You are not allowed to touch them. And if you see people touching them or harassing them or getting too close to them, definitely report it to FWC immediately. And you can also report it to us. And one of my favorite videos. What is wrong with this picture? Would you report this? What is wrong with this video? Would you report this? I don't know if you can really make out what they are, but they're an animal that we had talked about earlier. So yes, definitely report these. These are two small-tooth sawfish. They are super, super endangered and rare. This was filmed from a balcony in northern Biscayne Bay. And not only did they never see small-tooth sawfish in this area, but they never saw, I mean, two, that's just crazy. So this sighting and the sighting of these two sawfish got actually included in a scientific paper because they are so, so rare. So if you ever see a small-tooth sawfish, definitely report it to us. So as you can see, there are a lot of things to report, and we really just touched the basics. There's hundreds of types of reportable incidents that you might see. So if you want to scan the QR code, that will lead you to our Thousand Eyes on the Water wallet reference card that can help remind you of some of the major pollution sources in our bay. And I just want to also have you remember that when in doubt, always just submit a report to us. I'm actually the one who receives a lot of these reports, and I am more than happy to look into things myself. So just send lots of photos, lots of videos, and make sure you provide as much information as you can. So, you know, the coordinates of where this event is happening, photos, details, potentially landmarks near the pollution event. All of those things are super, super helpful so that we can get this pollution event to the proper agency as soon as possible. So I just want to thank you again. You guys are now all trained Thousand Eyes on the Water volunteers. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about water pollution and keeping your eyes on the bay. All right, so I think this is an ending poll. So it is just, I think it just popped up on the screen. You can indicate your level of agreement with the following statement. I learned something from participating in this webinar.
All right, Addy, we're going to wrap that up.
All right. And then, yeah, should we go to questions now?
Just,
If you guys,
just a couple of housekeeping things first, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I want to, Addy, thank you so much. That was a really fascinating presentation, and we're really glad that you were able to guest present today. I want to just announce that it is about 6:45, so if you all have to sign off, not a problem. We're going to be staying on to answer questions from the chat at this time.